So it just happened, and this is going to be impacting everybody. There is going to be major disruptions in our economy in the United States and globally. And if you have Social Security benefits, collect veteran benefits, if you collect Medicare, any of those provisions, you're going to want to watch this video all the way through, as this is the closest we have ever been to default in the United States. And this is breaking news coming out by the minute. I'm going to share with you the latest so that way you can just know what we're looking at. And just to clarify, we still have time. Even though we have hit the debt ceiling now, we're waiting for the X date, which I'm going to be discussing in more detail, which nobody really knows, but that is when officially things will default, and it could be very bad. Now, take a look at the headlines, and like I said, I'm going to be covering this in detail, reading right from them so you can see the latest to know what's going on. As the debt ceiling deadline looms, here's what it could mean for Social Security and Medicare. I'm going to be covering these specifically so you know, along with 4 other items that are going to be disrupted as a result of what's taking place. America hits the debt limit, raising economic fears. Yellen says the Treasury is taking extraordinary measures to avoid a default as the U.S. hits the debt limit. And look, there's still no information. This is breaking news just coming out. They haven't even written the articles, but they're just letting us know this is happening right now. And take a look. It's because of Congress that cannot come to an agreement to raise it. We could soon be facing the biggest financial crisis in history as Republicans threaten to stop paying America's bills, as the Republicans in the House are saying, no, stop the spending. We're not going to increase the debt so we can continue to go further into debt and do this outrageous spending until we balance the budget. And they said, yes, we're willing to put everybody at risk because we need to stop this, because the inflation is putting everybody at risk. We need to balance things out. Let's take a look. Here's another article. House Republicans are right. No debt limit increase until a balanced budget plan is in place. Now, let me know your thoughts. Which perspective do you think that you agree with more so? We should just raise the debt limit so that way we can avoid catastrophe, or it's time to put your foot down and say, no, we need to get things back on track because inflation and the interest rates and things are just spiraling out of control the other way. Let me know your thoughts, you guys. But I'm going to cover the details for you as to what's just coming out right now. How they're saying, unless they get this taken care of soon, there's going to be major disruptions, and it is going to impact everybody, not just Social Security, Medicare, veterans, and all those, but we're going to cover those in detail. Now, if you appreciate the updates, do me a favor before we dive in, smash the like button, subscribe to stay up to date. Whatever unfolds, I'll keep you up to date. And I just want to say too, I'm very optimistic that I believe that they will come to an agreement before we hit a default. Hopefully, we will see, but usually they can come to some sort of agreement because they understand the severity of what's taking place. However, we will see. This would be historic, but we'll go ahead and get you guys up to date on the latest. So let's go ahead and dive right in and see what's happening right now with a U.S. default crisis. All right, so first let's take a look at this article. It just came out yesterday, updated 2 hours ago, and it says a debt ceiling standoff may trigger serious fallout for Americans, warns economists. Here's what it means for you. Now, it's going to be covering 4 major items, one of which is benefits going out for Social Security, and then I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail in the next article. But take a look, you guys. If the U.S. were to default, it would send several negative shockwaves through the U.S. and the global economies. Here are some of the ways that it would affect consumers and investors. Number 1, frozen federal benefits. Tens of millions of American households might not get certain federal benefits, such as Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and federal aid related to nutrition, veterans, and housing on time or at all. So this could cause delays or even a lack of ability to pay. Government functions such as national defense may be affected if the salaries of active duty military personnel are frozen, for example. Number 2, a recession with job cuts. Affected households would have less cash on hand to pump into the United States economy, and a recession would seem to be inevitable. Under these circumstances, Hamrick said, recession would be accompanied by thousands of lost jobs and higher unemployment. Number 3, higher borrowing costs. Investors generally view the U.S. Treasury bond as the U.S. dollar as a safe haven. Bondholders are confident the U.S. will give their money back with interest on time. If that's no longer the case, rating agencies would likely downgrade the U.S. sterling credit rating, and people will demand much higher interest rates on Treasury bonds and compensate for the additional risk, Zandi said. Borrowing costs would rise for American consumers since rates on mortgages, credit cards, auto loans, and other types of consumer debt are linked to movements in the U.S. Treasury market. Businesses would also pay higher interest rates on their loans. So it would exacerbate the situation we're already in right now due to inflation. And number 4, extreme stock market volatility. A default would send shockwaves through the global financial markets and would likely cause credit markets worldwide to freeze up and stock markets to plunge. Even the threat of a default during the 2011 debt crisis caused Standard & Poor's to downgrade the credit rating of the United States and generated considerable market gyration. Mortgage rates rose from 0.7 to 0.8 percentage points for 2 months and fell slowly thereafter. So massive disruptions across the board. This is not just going to be impacting certain people, this would impact the entire world. All right, so now let's specifically talk about how this is going to be impacting Social Security and Medicare, what we could be looking at here. And again, this is linked in the description below. Now, this just came out today a little while ago, and it says, the clock is ticking for the U.S. to avoid a default on its debt, and some are sounding the alarms about potential disruptions to Social Security and Medicare. Now, on Thursday, January 19th, which is today, the U.S.'s outstanding debt is set to hit its statutory limit. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrote in a recent letter to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the debt limit or debt ceiling is the total amount of the money that the U.S. can borrow to meet its legal obligations, including Social Security and Medicare benefits, as well as military salaries, tax refunds, interest on national debt, and other payments. Now, when the limit is reached, the U.S. will have to take extraordinary measures to avoid defaulting on its obligations, which I just showed you in the breaking news is taking place at this very moment. The Treasury Department cannot provide an estimate of how long the government can expect to pay the government's obligations through extraordinary measures, Yellen wrote, but it's unlikely that cash will be exhausted before early June. So they're saying that X date, which is the day actual default will take place, they're thinking we have at least until June. So we've got a couple months to try to figure this out, but it's like we've officially hit the cap. Now, when do we start owing and not have the money to pay? They're saying likely sometime around June, but they're also going to be taking extraordinary measures to see if they can extend that out even further, as long as it takes for us to figure this out. Now, negotiations over the federal debt ceiling mark one of the first biggest challenges the new Congress will face. McCarthy has agreed to tie lifting the debt ceiling to spending cuts. That has advocates of Social Security and Medicare worried that lawmakers will try to amend those programs. We're looking at as early as June, a train wreck on this issue, said Dan Adcott, Director of the Government Relations and Policy at the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. The consequences are dire because a default would not only disrupt Social Security and Medicare benefits, but also cause a global economic recession or worse. How benefit payments could be delayed? Well, if the U.S. were to default on its debt, it would be unprecedented. The big question is whether the Treasury Department would be able to prioritize what does and does not get paid if this occurs. Unlike a government shutdown, where Social Security and Medicare benefits continue to flow, that may not be the case with a default. There's a good chance that benefits for retirees and people with disabilities and survivors would be disrupted. The Treasury Department may be able to prioritize some payments, and that would be including Social Security, says Jason Fitcher, chief economist at Bipartisan Policy Center, who previously served in several senior roles at the Social Security Administration. However, the Social Security Administration may delay payments to ensure that it has enough cash on hand. Meanwhile, Medicare payments may fluctuate, while other areas like federal employee salaries, food benefits through SNAP may stop. The process may be politically messy, they say. Social Security, I'm sure, will get paid. Interest on the debt will get paid, he said. After that, flip a coin. Who gets paid? Oh, wow. And here's why some worry about Social Security benefit cuts, what's happening right now in Congress. As House Republicans plan to focus on curbing government spending, some worry that that could entail cuts to Social Security benefits and Medicare in exchange for votes to increase or suspend the debt limit. Now, among the ideas Republicans have pitched include raising Social Security's full retirement age to 70. So we had heard that it was staying the same, but they're saying we need to bump it up so that way we're not dishing out so much at this time. Changing the way that benefits annual cost of living adjustments are measured to make them less generous, or making it so benefits are means tested through the middle class. Moreover, they could raise the Medicare eligibility age to 67 from 65. To make those changes, there would need to be enough support in the Senate with 60 votes. That's a pretty high threshold. I don't think that there would be 60 votes in the Senate to do the benefits cuts, said Adcock. Now, the White House has also indicated it's not willing to negotiate, so they are at a standstill here. As President Biden has made clear, Congress must deal with the debt limit and must do so without conditions. For Social Security reform to progress successfully, both parties would need to come to the table and be willing to make concessions. Without such a bipartisan legislative proposal on paper by June, it would be difficult to include Social Security in the debt ceiling negotiations. With Social Security, you're going to have a grand bargain that includes changes to the benefits formula and revenue increases. And that's just not something that they can get done right now in a debt crisis environment. Wow. So there is a lot on the line right now, and Social Security is on the chopping block for negotiations, which is, it's just crazy because they said 2023 was going to be the year of Social Security, but it might actually not be in a good light right now. So we will see what changes to Social Security, Medicare, and all these benefits unfold. And also, we're going to be seeing what happens with this debt ceiling crisis that we have officially hit today. We're waiting for the X date, which is the day when the actual default will take place, which they're saying should be sometime past June. Now, I will keep you up to date. Now, if you want to know about Social Security changes that have already taken effect and are being implemented right now in 2023, check out this video right here as I cover them for you, the latest on SSI, SSDI, retirement, all those benefits. Check it out right here next. These are already implemented. But with that being said, you guys, I will keep you up to date. Make sure that you know what's going on. If you appreciate that, smash the like button, hit subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.